Hello! In this video I'm going to quickly explain how to use the Recognizing Rules module. This module is probably the easiest module we're going to use the whole semester, and the point of it is really just to help us learn the inference rules a little more so that we can use them more easily when we're actually doing derivations. So in the Recognizing Rules module, we open up a problem. I'm looking at this 1.6 LRS 33, and we see an argument here. It's got two premises, Q arrow U and Q, and then a conclusion U. The question we're asked is there a rule that applies or not? Right now we only have the rule MP. As we get further into the semester, we'll be learning other rules, and so there'll be more options. But right now, the only rule for us that could apply is MP, and so we really only have two options. Either MP applies or it doesn't. So if MP does apply, we're going to write MP. You can write it caps, it doesn't matter. Or if you think no rule applies, you're going to enter none, and there'll be some problems where MP does apply, and some problems where it doesn't, so some you'll need to enter MP, some you'll enter none. In this case, we have Q arrow U, that's a conditional, and then our other premise is the antecedent, the first part of the conditional. So as far as MP goes, those are the right premises. You need just any conditional as one premise, and then its antecedent, the first part by itself, as the other premise, and that's what we have. And then the conclusion of the argument should match the consequent of the conditional. The conclusion is U, the conditional, its consequent is U, so the conclusion matches the consequent. So we have what we need for MP, a conditional premise, another premise that's the antecedent of the conditional, and the conclusion is the consequent. So we're going to write MP, and it's correct. So great, good, that's all we need to do. Let's look at another one. This is going to be 34. So here we have a different conditional. This time it's U arrow Q, and the other premise is a U. Well, that's good. Excuse me, that's what we need for modus ponens. We have a conditional, and then the other premise is the antecedent, and the conclusion is Q, which is the consequent of the conditional. So again, we're going to say MP does apply. Here we have another argument. In this case, we have a premise who's a conditional, U arrow Q. And now we look at the rest of the argument, and we see, well, the premise is Q, that's the consequent of the conditional, and the conclusion is U, that's the antecedent of the conditional. So in this case, modus ponens does not apply, because what we need for modus ponens is a conditional premise, and then the other premise should be the antecedent of the conditional, the first part of the conditional, but it's not. So we don't have a conditional and the antecedent as premises, and so this is not an application of modus ponens. We don't know any other rules, so we're going to say none, and in fact, that's correct. We look at just one more here. So here we have two conditionals, a sentence by itself, and then an atomic sentence. So two conditionals, an atomic sentence, so three premises, and then a conclusion that's also an atomic sentence. Now this first conditional is Q arrow U, and we do have Q as a second premise. So the premises are correct for modus ponens. And if we applied modus ponens to Q arrow U and U, though, what would we get? We would get U. So if we were applying modus ponens just to the first and the third, then we would get U, we wouldn't get P, we would get U. So that's not modus ponens. Now if we apply modus ponens again to U arrow P and U, then we can get to P. But that's two applications of modus ponens. This argument is valid. If you were asked to derive it, you could, but you'd use two applications of modus ponens, not one. And so there's no one rule, as it turns out, that gets us from these three premises to the conclusion. There's a rule that gets us from Q and Q arrow U to U, and then that same rule applied again gets us from U and U arrow P to P, but there's no one rule that gets us all the way, and so we again enter none. It's correct. Okay, so that's the Recognizing Rules module. I think that's pretty straightforward. You just enter the rule that applies, or you enter none. Right now, the only rule that we're working with is modus ponens, so you just enter MP or none. As we proceed through the semester, you'll learn more rules, and so you'll have more options to enter in there, but that will also be straightforward. So, good luck with your Recognizing Rules problems. Please let me know if you have any questions about them.